Okay, so now we're recording, and I'll
Right.
just start with a brief introduction so that we can
Sure.
understand the context of it. And so, just to start, this is my first video on my new YouTube channel, and I am Rishi. And the purpose of starting this video channel is generally to start a discussion on death, because I have been recently profoundly im- affected by the death of my father. And I also believe that there is some hesitation in India on the fluent discussion on death. We do not discuss death as we should ideally as a society do. And so, because this is my first video on this channel, I thought to be in my comfort zone, and that's why I invited Uddhav sir. He's my spiritual teacher, guide, friend, everything, and I've learned a lot from him. I think we have been in touch since 2017, so almost more than 6 years. So thank you, sir, for helping me do this on my first channel, and I'm really thankful that you got time for this.
No,
Uh,
thank you for inviting me. And as you rightly said, we have been in touch for a very long time, and it's really been a great association. You are among my, best students, the most sincere students, and it's a very interesting idea, this YouTube channel, centered around the concept of death. And of course, there'll be other ideas associated with it as well.
yes,
But it's a great idea. I mean, there's a lot to discuss on this subject. When you discuss about death, I think you also discuss about life.
exactly, yes.
So, yeah, so it's a great idea. So I wish you all the best.
Thank you, sir. So just to start, sir, I mean, I just said that I lost dad in November, and after that, I have been going through lots of emotional, I will say, ups and downs. And as I have been interested in Indian scriptures, and we have helped me understand many of those. And I will definitely say that those helped me understand during this period the transition and why it happened and what should we do. I just wanted to ask a question on, so basically after death in Hindu civilization, and it might slightly differ from place to place, but in our system, it was a 13-day ritual, which we say Terimi. And so first up to 10th day is like a ritual. Uh, Hello, am I audible, sir?
Yes, yes. Continue.
Yeah, so first to 10 days is like a daily ritual in the morning and in the evenings, slightly called Pindan types. And then on the 12th and the 13th day, 11th and 12th day, basically Katsa and Dwatsa, basically they are more elaborate rituals. Now, what I understand basically is one is the karma part of it, which helps us to go through the grief, if I am trying to understand what the process. And the other aspect is also that uh, because they say that soul travels from first day to 12th day and then goes out of this realm. So can you just help us understand that is this the way of the Hindu civilization to help someone who is grieving from a loss, or what is this? I just wanted to help to understand a bit about it.
Hmm. See, there are, of course, two ways of interpreting it. One is the ritualistic, and the other is the spiritualistic, right? The ritualistic aspect is, as you said, that the soul takes time to leave the region and, go to its ultimate abode. So it's the time is given for the passage of the soul. And of course, there are some amount of rituals for purification to be done, because the child of the deceased, the child of the deceased is considered impure for a certain duration. And of course, the house is considered impure for a certain duration, 10 days, as you said. So, and you also have to give time to, understanding the nature of death, how it is part of life. So for all of that, this period of 10 days is made. Uh, 11 days in some families, 13 in some families, and so on.
Yeah.
So this period is very important for the from the ritualistic point of view for the passage of the soul, from the spiritualistic point of view, for the bereaved people, for the grieving people to cope with death and to make peace with it and to understand the nature of life and death. And that is why certain amount of scriptures are read during this period. The Bhagavad Gita in particular is read. It is recommended that you read the Gita constantly during this period. Uh, in the evenings, I'm sure at your place also, there is the reading of the Garud Puran,
Yes, Garud Puran,
which,
yes.
yes, which speaks of the various hells and the various, kinds of gatis, kinds of conditions that the soul may have to go through if one is not moral while living. So that is in a way an education for us, the living, to lead a moral life, uh, and also pray for the departed soul, right? That they get a good fate after death. So all of these things are there. It's a multi-dimensional idea. It's a multi-dimensional idea. So from the ritualistic point of view, you have to purify yourself and you have to allow the time for the passage of the soul.
So,
Purification is very important in Indian, in Vedic philosophy, in Vedic religion. Purification is a very important concept. You must have noticed in everything,
yes.
purification is very, very important. So this period is very important for purification from the ritualistic perspective.
So I just have a follow-up question in that you said that death is treated as impure and it needs purity. So can you just help understand why here we are saying is death is impurity? Because
No, no, not
if we
just
go
death.
beyond,
See, even if a child is born, when the child is also born, then also there is a period of
yes,
impurity,
right, yeah,
right? So it's not just related to death. The concept of purity and impurity is very different in Vedic
hmm,
religion.
hmm,
So there are certain periods of time when a person is considered impure. And
hmm,
of course, there is a philosophy behind it.
okay,
And that will take us into a tangent, so we'll not
yes,
get into
no,
that.
yeah,
But yeah, there is a philosophy behind it. There's a reason behind it. So it's not just that death is causes impurity. Birth may also cause impurity, and there are certain other instances in life also.
yes.
I mean, there is a philosophy to it.
Right. Yeah, I understand that we might go in different tangent. The
Yeah,
other understanding which I just wanted to touch upon is the idea of grief. So,
yeah.
like I said, that I have been going through a period which I would say that I was. It's human to be grieving, and in Western psychology, which I have been reading, they say there is different stages of grief, from anger, guilt, and all those. But that's psychological part of it. Can you just help us understand that is there anything in the Gita or Indian scriptures which say that how someone should grieve loss of a closed one? I mean, is there any particular way to grieve, or what should we do when we are grieving? Is there any guidance?
Hmm. See, I thought about these questions because you had shared these questions
Yes.
with me earlier. So I thought about them. See, first of all, let me tell you in general what is the scripture's view about grief.
Yes.
there are two perspectives. One is the Paramarthik view and the other is the Vyavaharik view. So
Right.
for the viewers who may not understand these terms, we can say that one is the higher spiritual view and the other is the worldly view. We can say the lower worldly view.
Hmm.
Okay. Both views are there in our scriptures. From the higher perspective, grief is a mark of ignorance.
Okay.
From the
Hmm.
paramarthic, spiritual, philosophical perspective, grief is a mark of ignorance. Why?
Right.
Because if you are grieving, it means you identify with the mortal existence, mortal individual,
Or
mortal
you're
body and
attached.
mind, or you are attached to the person whom
Yeah.
you have lost,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So you are identifying with the mortal body, and that is why it is a mark of ignorance. And that is why grief is to be avoided from the philosophical point of view, spiritual point of view. Grief is to be avoided. So I'll give you a couple of examples here, like in the Mahabharata,
Yes.
when all the Kauravas die, Dhritarashtra is grieving.
Hmm.
This is at the beginning of the Stree Parva, which
Okay.
is all about grief.
Hmm.
Okay, the Mahabharata has 12 sections. The one of the sections is Stree Parva, which is all about grief. After the
Hmm.
war is over, all the Kauravas are dead and all the women are grieving. So at the beginning, Dhritarashtra is grieving. And Sanjay counsels him that you should not grieve. Why? Grief is not appropriate. It doesn't suit you. It doesn't suit a
Hmm.
wise person. And
Hmm.
he says that if you grieve, you cannot attain any of the purusharthas. You can't
Hmm.
attain artha, you can't attain kama, nor dharma, nor moksha. You know, he says, I've written this quote for you.
Hmm.
Arthan na shochan prapnoti, na shochan vindate sukham, na shochan shariyam apnoti, na shochan vindate param. Okay, so if you do shoka, you can't attain any of the purusharthas, and therefore, O king, do not grieve.
Okay.
Similarly, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, right from the beginning, when he begins to speak, 2.11, he begins with the statement that Arjun, you are grieving for things that should not be grieved upon. Ashochan, shochastvam, pragyavadancha bhashase. And you are speaking like a wise person. A wise person never grieves. And then he goes on to explain why grief is inappropriate. It is a mark of ignorance because the body is not the truth. You are considering the
Right.
body the truth, body is not the truth. And the whole Gita, in a way, is talking about grief only because Krishna is trying to cure Arjuna's grief, right? Shankar in his commentary writes that the whole purpose of the Gita is to cure the sorrow of Arjuna.
Hmm.
So Krishna also makes Arjuna understand why grief is inappropriate.
Hmm.
At the same time, in the scriptures, we have the Laukic view also, the worldly view,
Hmm.
wherein grief is accepted.
Okay.
So again, I'll give you an example. In the Ramayana, uh, Dashrath passes away, right?
Hmm.
And Bharatji comes to the forest to meet Ram, right? He
Right.
comes to
Yeah.
meet Sri Ram in the forest and he brings the news of the passing away of their father. And it's written in the Valmiki Ramayana as well as in the Ramcharitmanas that when Bharatji tells Sri Ram that their father has passed away, Sri Ram collapses unconscious.
Hmm.
He's so grief stricken that he becomes unconscious. Again, I'm quoting this for you from the Valmiki Ramayana. Tam shrutva karunam vacham pitur maranam samhitam raghavam bharate nektam vabhuva gat chetana. one who is the embodiment of consciousness became unconscious.
Oh, it's really
And
good.
then, of
Yeah.
course, yeah, then of course he is revived by the brothers and Sita. And then they lament for a long time. And it's described in the Ramayana that how they lament for a long time, and all the creatures of the forest lament with them, and all of that is there. So now you look at this Sri Ram, who is an avatar,
Yeah.
right? He is Brahman and
Hmm.
he is grieving.
Yeah.
So both the ideas are there. Why? Because when Vishnu took the avatar, he said also that now I will go through all the trials and tribulations that a human being goes through.
Hmm.
I will act like a human being, right? So I will laugh also and I will grieve also, because grieving is part of being human. So grieving is part of being human. This has been accepted in our scriptures. And uh, of course, grief is natural and it should not be avoided. It should not be avoided, it should not be suppressed as such. At the same
Hmm.
time, the scriptures also ask us to have certain amount of wisdom and composure, have an understanding that this is all a play, this is not the truth, the body is not the truth, the attachments are not to be indulged into so deeply that you completely lose track of your life and lose track of dharma and so on, and of your spiritual path. So you have to have a balance between the two. You grieve like a natural person. Whatever grief comes to you, you grieve also. But at the same time, have some amount of composure and wisdom, which the scriptures give us. So in that 10-day period, you grieve also and you get some wisdom also, right? So both the
Hmm.
things are there.
Okay, so that's I think very nice and simple explanation. So what I understand from what you're saying is that it is completely fine and human to grieve, and uh, in fact, it's very natural, and we should not stop ourselves from grieving. But at the same time, we should be conscious about why are we grieving, what we are grieving, and what is the the innate nature of our grief. So it's like we should not simply be grieving, but we should also understand the nature of grief, and to understand that this grieving is part of the world, the entire samsar, and also to understand that this is also not the end of it. Like we have much more uh, aspect of it which can help us to live a beautiful and better life. Is that how generally I
Yeah,
think in the
yeah. See,
scriptures?
the right amount of, you have to find the right amount of grief.
Hmm.
Okay. Like Swami Vivekanand has written it very perfectly. He says that you look at your family like a caretaker. You
Hmm.
look after your family like a caretaker. So then you will have the right amount of grief when you lose them.
Hmm.
So, like, suppose you hire a caretaker, you hire a nanny for your children. So, of course, she or he is attached to the children with all of affection, but they also know that one day they have to go to some other house, right? And they will leave the children behind. So, you will have some amount of grief also, but you will have some amount of composure also, some amount of distance also. So you have to have that kind of balance. So you have to look after your parents or your loved ones like a caretaker. So you are not devoid of love, you're not devoid of feeling, you're not devoid of grief. Because see, if you love, you there will be grief when you lose that love, right? So the Indian scripture is not trying to turn you into a robot where you lose all these emotions completely, right? The emotions are important, they're part of being human, and you must show them as they come. At the same time, you must also keep progressing towards your, inner spiritual maturity.
Hmm. So I think fundamentally what we are also talking about here is the idea of attachment. Like we should have a very healthy idea of attachment, and we should know if we are overtly attached with anyone, be with our parents or wife or anyone, and that's how it will lead to a situation in we can grieve a better way. So I think that will be a very separate topic discussion. What should be the attachment, and also I don't think we should go into that today. Uh, what do we do? I mean, I understand you have briefly touched about it, and but is there any way to? And I know there are many karma kants and rituals for this, but what do you suggest that what is the best way Indian scriptures talk about to honoring a dead? I mean, like, what should I do to resolve my unsettled emotions or complicated emotions which I had with my father now when now he's not there? Is there anything which the
Hmm.
Indian scriptures talk about through something which we should do to help us resolve that?
Yeah, so okay, see, one very important idea is devotion, bhakti, right? So if you have any unsettled emotions, feelings towards the person who has passed away, now you have to make peace within yourself about it, right?
Hmm,
So how do you do that? You do that through devotion. Devotion is actually a cure for everything, for
hmm,
all our problems.
hmm,
And the Gita specifically relies on it. Like the last statement of the Gita is, Ma Shuchaha, do not grieve. Why? Because you leave everything on God. You surrender to God. That is the last word of the Gita. That Sarva Dharma Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vrajaha. Right?
hmm,
So
hmm,
you give up, you surrender everything into God, you take the refuge of God, and by that, Ma Shuchaha, do not grieve. Right? So the grief will take its time to go away. The only way of dealing with it on your own is surrendering to God, expressing whatever you're feeling to God, and hoping that all of it will subside at its due time. You can't wish it away. You cannot wish it
hmm,
away, right?
hmm.
Like in modern times, we speak about therapy.
Yeah.
We go to psychology counselors, and we talk about it. We can also talk about it to our friends and family, and all of it is helpful.
Yeah.
At the same time, there are certain things which we also don't know what is going on within us, and we may
Hmm,
not be able to express completely, right? And we need someone greater than us to rely on, to depend upon, to help us through this
hmm,
process, right?
hmm,
So for all of that, bhakti devotion comes in very useful, right?
hmm,
So in bhakti, in devotion, you have a personal connection with your Ishtadeva. And in that connection, in that relationship, you express your happiness also, and you express your grief also. And when
hmm,
you express your grief, you feel lighter, and you also get some amount of sense about how to deal with it. Whatever is unsaid, you can say it in that
hmm,
prayer,
hmm.
and you will feel better about it because you can't do anything more then, right? So bhakti is one solution.
Right. Okay. So, and what I hear, what you're trying to say is that there's no need to jump from your grief. It is something which will come naturally. I mean, you will naturally go over the process, but fundamentally, there's no need uh, to think or to wish that everything should be comfortable. I should be happy now again. Basically, what we're trying to say that we need to sit with the grief, allow it to settle, and probably the universe will take care of it, and we should have that trust in the entire universe.
Yes, 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 yes. See,
Right.
every important character in our scriptures has grieved, and they have grieved a lot. In the
Hmm.
story of
Hmm.
Shiv and Shakti,
Hmm.
which we were studying in the Shiv Purana,
Yes.
when Sati, jumps into the fire, then
Hmm.
Shiv grieves,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So there is grief in all our stories. Mahabharata, Ramayana is full of grief. Lot of grief is there because they are
Hmm.
human stories and human life is full of grief. So all of it
Yeah.
is depicted in these stories. So there is no shying away from grief. There is no wishing away of grief.
Hmm. And I think it's also tells beautifully that that the Vedantic system also say that uh, life need not be always full of good things or exciting or always in a good humor. Life is also have many colors, and as you said that Shiv grieved loss of Sati, so which shows that it is a fundamentally very acceptable part of life that we lose someone, we'll lose good friends either through by of death or by other events, and which is a
Anything,
part of
yes.
life. Which is a part of
Yeah.
life, and there's nothing wrong in that. I think a very beautiful part of the uh, Indian Vedantic system.
Yes, yes, yes. That's the thing, that's the beauty of the Vedic system, that the Laukik is never rejected.
Hmm.
It is integrated with the Paramarthik. Sri
Hmm.
Aurobindo says this, that
Hmm.
in the Vedic system, the lower is not rejected, it is integrated with the higher.
Hmm.
So that is something that it's a very deep idea, and we need to dwell upon it. We need to try to understand it, how we can achieve it within ourselves. It's easier said than done, but that is the idea.
Hmm. And I think that also helps us to understand that uh, there's no need to be restless about the change. I mean, in modern world, modern culture, we are so restless that we want this, we want that, or you know, things are not going right, and all those things. It helps us to understand it's okay that things are not going right, and it will go on. There's no need for to make a drastic change in life for that.
Yeah, yeah, there is a tendency that, you divert your mind, you try to do a lot of things,
Yes,
you make yourself busy to
yes,
overcome grief. These are the
hmm,
ways people use.
right,
And maybe it works for some people, maybe,
yes, yes,
and some of it may be healthy also, because see, if you divert your mind with some physical work, exercise, or some work or of some kind, of course that is definitely good, because it will give you a mental break from those thoughts.
correct,
But
yeah,
it will not cure the problem, it will not
yes,
cure the problem, it will be a break.
hmm, yeah,
So the cure is also necessary.
yeah, absolutely, yeah, okay. So that's nice, sir. I had one more question on the life after death in Indian scriptures, but I think
Yeah.
that is a more
No, you can ask. You
uh,
can ask. Yeah.
but you can just, if slightly in 2 minutes, you can just give an idea that whether the Indian scriptures or Gita subscribe to this view that there is a life after death,
Hmm.
or how should we look at it? I mean, very briefly will be also
Yeah, yeah.
helpful.
See, the of course, the whole Vedic tradition believes in life after death.
Mm-hmm,
Uh, and it's not a unique idea in the Vedic culture only. It was there in most ancient cultures.
mm-hmm,
Even in the Greek culture, they believed in the immortality of the soul, and they believed in life after death, the rebirth concept. Uh, there are various reasons why this idea is accepted. One, of course, is that the moral responsibility cannot be fixed if the soul doesn't live on after death. Because see, you do a lot of good things in this life, and you do a lot of bad things in this life. Now, you may not bear the results of all those actions in this one lifetime alone. right? So now, like when we look at people, some people are really bad in their conduct. They are bad
Hmm.
human beings, but they are living a very good life. So we
Yes.
wonder why this imbalance is there. So
Hmm.
then the consolation prize that we get from our scripture is that they will definitely bear the consequences, but in the next life, in
Yeah.
some future life, right? So this explanation is possible only if we believe in life after death.
Yeah.
That's one thing. And the other thing is the whole scriptural view is of cyclical existence,
Hmm.
right? The universe goes through cycles. It's not the first and the last universe. It's not a linear process. The Big Bang was not the first in,
Hmm.
coming about of the universe. Similarly, your birth is not the first time this individual has come into existence,
Hmm.
right? So it's a cyclical view. It's a cyclical view. This cyclical view is most logical for the Indian scripture, and that is why
Hmm.
it believes in life after death.
So there is a continuity and everything continues, and there is
Yeah,
uh. Hmm.
because if you say that, the universe was not there and from nothing something came, this
Yeah.
idea is not acceptable to the Upanishad, right?
Hmm.
The Upanishad says that from nothing something cannot come.
Hmm.
Same
That's an
applies for the
interesting thing.
individual.
Hmm. Right. I think that's a great topic. I think probably I will take your time some other time. But what you said is very thoughtful. That from nothing something cannot come, and I think
Yes,
it's a great idea to contemplate.
yes,
But
absolutely.
thank you so much, sir. I think it's always great to understand your perspective, and I've enjoyed everything and including this
Right. No,
discussion.
great questions, great idea. It gave me a lot of food for thought. I was thinking about these questions for 2 weeks. Uh, so yeah, very interesting topic.
I hope I will engage again on some other topic, or maybe we'll continue this topic some other time whenever you have
Sure,
time. Thank you so much, sir.
sure. Thank you so much, Risha.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.